Everyday high-speed chases race through the streets of South Carolina, pursuing justice, but at what cost? This week, WIS Investigates looks at the price of pursuit. We're investigating the true price, tax dollars spent, and lives at risk. And we look at the potential solutions to keep you safe.
Tonight, investigative reporter Cynthia Beasley brings us the first of 4 stories in the price of pursuit.
Well, Greg Hanna, high-speed pursuits are all about weighing risks. Does the need to immediately arrest the suspect outweigh the risk of a chase? Well, in South Carolina, when to chase is left up to each law enforcement agency. And in our investigation, we found that many of the chases start from traffic violations or misdemeanors, and many chases can end with innocent people hurt or killed. I do want to warn you, some of this video is graphic. High-speed pursuits. They're one of the most dangerous things law enforcement officers do, and not just for the officer. This pursuit took a wrong turn. A Richland County Sheriff's deputy chases a suspect the wrong way on Interstate 126.
We're in the outbound, going outbound in the oncoming traffic.
At the same time,
I just headed down 26. Same route I take all the time.
Pam Baker was driving to Columbia.
I saw the car coming at me. I swerved to the right, and he swerved back in front of me, and then we crashed.
After passing almost 75 cars going the wrong way, the suspect hits Baker head-on, going more than 70 miles per hour. The suspect, who law enforcement says was wanted for trafficking drugs and fentanyl, later dies. Baker miraculously survives, but wasn't unharmed.
I remember the nurse saying to me, "You don't need to feel bad. You did nothing wrong, but it's hard when you know, like, you've been in a crash and someone else has lost their life."
The crash happened on December 29th, 2023. But we found chases happen at least once a day on average in Richland County. This was just 5 months earlier. A Richland County deputy chases a car full of teenagers. Before this video, the 17-year-old driver sped off from a traffic stop after a trooper wrote him a speeding ticket. This Richland County deputy spots the car and starts chasing.
20 is to be uniform, Juliet, X-ray.
After less than 4 minutes.
1050, roll over.
6 teens end up in a pond.
We got one unaccounted for in the water, has now resurfaced.
Deputies searched the water and pulled some of them to safety, but one passenger never made it out.
Did you find it?
Teams found 16-year-old Brandon Nunez's body in the pond the next day. Is there anything else that you would want to say to the family of the child who died or the other children in the car who had to go through that as well?
I'm sorry that they made that decision. I'm sorry that they were in a vehicle with someone who failed to stop. I'm sorry we couldn't save his life. I wish we could have done more. My deputies who think about that every single day.
Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott defends his deputy's decision to chase the teenagers. They arrested the driver for several charges, including evading police and felony DUI resulting in death. So had the information, address, all of that. Is that a case where instead of chasing, maybe deputies could have gone to his house or tried to find him in another manner?
There's a lot of maybes. It's easy to sit back and Monday morning quarterback the decisions that these deputies have to make in the spur of a moment. And they fall back on their training, they fall back on our policy.
Sheriff Lott says his deputies followed department policy in both pursuits. Your policy says, as a general rule, deputies should not pursue a vehicle driving the wrong direction. So what was the difference in this case?
He needed to be caught. He determined he was going to go down the wrong way. If we had not chased him and just let him go, and then the next day somebody dies from an overdose of drugs that he put on the street, that comes back on us.
If citizens want to know about pursuits in Richland County, they won't find much online. The department doesn't publish information on why deputies are chasing or how the chases end. You will find how many pursuits happened in 2023. When the public sees that and they see, okay, 448 vehicle pursuits in 2023, that's at least one a day.
That's an indicator of how people's attitude is, that they won't stop. Criminals are going to do everything they can get away. Our job, and what I think the citizens of Richland County want us to do, is to protect them, and that is catch criminals when they break the law.
When that data isn't public on how many pursuits are ending in arrest and what the arrests are for, how can the public have a clear picture of why you say it's important to pursue as often as you do?
I think the people trust us. I think the people trust me as the sheriff that we're going to make decisions that are going to protect them. That's what elections are for.
I requested data about Richland County pursuits. Last year, 85 ended in a crash. Pursuits ended in death or injury 7 times for deputies and 63 times for suspects. But when it comes to civilians or innocent bystanders injured or killed, department officials say they don't track that. What are you chasing people for a majority of the time?
People who break the law.
Most of the time, those people are accused of misdemeanor offenses. Department data shows last year, deputies chased someone for a misdemeanor 372 times. For a felony, 9 times. What leads an officer to chase varies from agency to agency. There's no statewide policy for pursuits. For example, the Richland County Sheriff's Department has a broad policy. It says deputies can chase someone for a felony or misdemeanor that would require an arrest. But in Columbia, police department policy says officers should only chase people suspected of violent crimes. Some policies are even more defined. In the Charleston Police Department, officers can only chase suspects if they're believed to have committed certain violent crimes, including murder, rape, or kidnapping. Charleston's policy was used as an example in a report from the federal government calling on agencies to reduce high-speed pursuits. Their police chief says this policy helps his officers.
They get them guidance, so it really helps them as far as, taking some of the play out of it, so they know exactly what we are looking for as far as expectations from not only the agency but the community.
In 2023, his department only initiated 6 pursuits.
And we can't leave it up to each law enforcement agency.
Richland County Senator Daryl Jackson is introducing legislation that would call on SLED and law enforcement experts to make a statewide standard and policy for police chases.
I'm a big supporter of law enforcement, but here's what I would say. Do you kill an innocent person in pursuit of someone who is bad?
Something Baker agrees with.
And maybe it will save lives and save someone else from having to go through what I have.
Now, in the crash, Baker fractured multiple parts of her spine, her ankle, and her leg. She's gone through multiple surgeries and will likely need more. She's also filed a lawsuit against the department and Sheriff Leon Lott.
Tonight, in the pursuit, the price of pursuit, it is one of the most dangerous things police officers do, high-speed chases. Data shows pursuits are increasing across the country.
But WIS Investigates found there is no state law requiring pursuit training.
Investigative reporter Cynthia Beasley takes us to the track at the State Criminal Justice Academy and breaks down a federal report that urges police to reduce high-speed chases.
It takes months of training to become a law enforcement officer in South Carolina. For part of the training, officers are on the track. Here, they learn precision driving.
We teach them you drive 80% of your capability, 80% of the vehicle's capability. Because if you push it all the way to 100 and something bad happens, you have no room for error.
So that means you really have to know your own capabilities too then?
Yes. And hopefully this week, that's what they're learning.
We got to go through the driving course at the Criminal Justice Academy.
They run this course a total of 7 times before they're tested.
They learn everything from how to steer.
It's a smoother action, smooth as fast.
And how to carefully drive through sharp curves and busy streets.
We're going to come up on our last simulated curve here and get into city lane changes. This is to simulate, smaller roads in the city with people parking on both sides trying to get in and out.
Jackie Swindler is the director of the state's Criminal Justice Academy.
While they'll use a lot of these skills in a pursuit, it's not pursuit-specific training, right?
Correct, because that's individual agencies will teach their agencies, their officers, what their pursuit policy is.
South Carolina law doesn't mandate agencies to do additional pursuit training. The law also doesn't specify what warrants an officer to initiate a pursuit. So pursuit policies vary agency to agency.
Some agencies do training later and some probably don't.
Swindler says it comes down to good training and good policies, which lead to better decisions and safer outcomes.
I want us to be able to pursue for things that are serious and that we need to. But I want us to be smart about it and know that sometimes that's not the best decision if it's not something serious.
A federal report is calling on law enforcement agencies to limit high-speed pursuits to protect innocent citizens. The report says officers should receive both classroom and scenario-based training. And it says only officers with that training should be allowed to engage in a pursuit.
Do you think that it will take, in some cases, action at the State House in order to mandate a specific type of training for this?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, it will take legislation.
Jeff Alpert, a professor at the University of South Carolina, has been researching police pursuits since the 80s. He was one of several people who worked on that report that suggests high-speed pursuits should only happen when a suspect has committed or could commit a violent crime.
It's something that is very important for the state, that if we want to save lives, someone has to make this happen.
The report cites research that shows more than 90% of pursuits are initiated because of traffic violations.
So the departments, when they change their policies to violent crime only from this judgmental policy, you're reducing your pursuits by about 90%.
And saving a lot of people at that point.
Absolutely. Now, the flip side is you're letting people go. But as a lot of police officers and police chiefs have told and shown me, just because you're getting away now doesn't mean you're not going to get caught. And that goes back to just doing good police work.
Innocent people are often the ones injured. National data shows from 2009 to 2013, there were 2 serious injuries and 10 minor injuries for every 100 pursuits. 21% of those hurt weren't involved in the chase. And again, like Director Swindler said, several law enforcement agencies do their own pursuit training, but a spokesperson for the Criminal Justice Academy says they don't track which departments do and don't. Coming up tomorrow on WIS News at 10, many of the cases that we've looked at in this investigation involve reckless or impaired drivers running from police. Tomorrow, we'll go over what that federal report recommends agencies do in these cases. You'll also hear from innocent bystanders who were hurt in a police chase.
Police are here to serve and protect. They take an oath to protect us. And where was my protection?
Lives change forever in just seconds.
Tonight in The Price of Pursuit, investigative reporter Cynthia Beasley speaks to a couple who was hurt in a police pursuit and tells us what experts say about pursuing reckless or impaired drivers.
When you hear about a police chase, you often hear how it ends, whether that's an arrest or a crash. Tonight, we look at how many of these chases start. Data shows about 90% of pursuits start because of a traffic violation, and some end with innocent people hurt or killed. We do want to note some of the video in this story is graphic.
They got a wreck. They was going so fast, you could just hear the wind blowing off of them.
I asked Kelly, I said, it's a beautiful night out. You want to take a ride or you want to turn around and go back the way we came? And she said, let's take a ride. Let's go through Iowa.
Come through Iowa right now.
Looking back, we probably should have turned around.
So I didn't hear the police. I didn't.
Just a flash of blue light, and then it was.
And then we were hit.
I don't remember much after that.
Passion Wallace remembers everything.
Got off the motorcycle and seen this car in front of me just like burning, and didn't know where she was.
The impact launched Kelly Phillips from their motorcycle.
I started screaming. I was shaking her, trying to wake her up, and she wasn't responding to anything. I thought she was dead.
Phillips was severely injured.
Everything hurt.
Those injuries, physical and mental.
She saw everything, and I only saw darkness.
Why am I here? And why did he lose his life?
72-year-old Joseph Gardner was in the car that caught fire after the suspect hit them. The driver of that car survived, but was injured.
When he woke me up, the car was on fire on top of us.
In an interview with South Carolina Highway Patrol after the crash, the driver says he and Gardner were going to the store.
Okay. Just left my home. We didn't make it far at all.
When you heard what he was charged with, when you heard why they were chasing him, what was the first thing you thought?
That is insane. Are you serious?
Michael Trotter pleaded guilty to several charges after running from police, leading to Gardner's death and the other victims' injuries. As for what happened before he ran from police, Trotter pleaded guilty to driving under suspension, using a license plate that wasn't registered to the car, and having an open container of alcohol in the car.
Police are here to serve and protect. They take an oath to protect us. And where was my protection? Where was Kelly's protection? Where was the man that got killed in this accident? Where was his protection?
Since the crash, 3 lawsuits have been filed on behalf of the victims against the Abbeville County Sheriff's Office and the Anderson County Sheriff's Office. All lawsuits allege negligence, saying deputies should have stopped chasing Trotter. In an interview with South Carolina Highway Patrol, the deputy says he tried to pull Trotter over because he was swerving. And when Trotter drove off, he chased him.
He never really had control of the vehicle. I made a determination that with him heading towards Iowa, with a fireworks show, and still having people still coming out, I'd rather have lights and sirens so people hear and see us coming.
I'm just glad that he didn't come through there, 15 minutes earlier, because he'd have killed everybody at the fireworks stand.
The man killed and the 3 people hurt in this chase are a part of a scary trend as the number of deadly police chases increases across the country. Innocent people are often the ones injured. National data shows from 2009 to 2013, there were 2 serious injuries and 10 minor injuries for every 100 pursuits. 21% of those hurt weren't involved in the chase.
I understand that fleeing from the police is a very stupid thing to do and you shouldn't do it, but at some point there has to be an adult in the room, and it isn't going to be the guy who's fleeing.
Jeff Alpert, a professor at the University of South Carolina, has been researching police pursuits for more than 30 years. He was one of several people who worked on a report for the federal government that came up with recommendations for police departments when it came to high-speed chases. The report suggests officers only pursue a suspect if a violent crime has been committed, or if the suspect could commit another violent crime. The report also gives recommendations on pursuing people who drive recklessly.
These suspects who are fleeing from the police are glued to their rear view and side view mirrors. So they're looking behind them to see what the police are doing, not in front of them to see what's there. So if you're not driving, quote, normally, if you're driving under the influence of something, the last thing we want them to do is speed up.
The report and Alpert say in a case of reckless driving, the need to catch the suspect will not outweigh the risk of the pursuit.
It reminds me of the time I was giving a talk at a MAD meeting, and I remember a woman came up to me and she was actually shaking. I'll never forget this. She said, "There's only one thing worse than a drunk on the street, and that's a drunk being chased by a police officer."
The report cites a study that shows after police terminate a chase, suspects slowed down after 90 seconds. Another study says GPS technology found in less than 2 minutes on average, suspects returned to driving within 10 miles per hour of the speed limit after officers disengage.
They're not going to drive from here to Atlanta at these breakneck speeds, and hopefully they'll slow down quickly. And that's really public safety is the goal. We want to have the public safer, and the apprehension, while it's important, is really secondary to that public safety.
In legal responses to those lawsuits, both the Abbeville and Anderson County Sheriff's Office say their deputies' actions were justified. Tomorrow on WIS News at 6, we're looking at solutions. We'll show you technology created right here in South Carolina that could protect innocent people. We're also breaking down the financial cost. We went through years of documents to find out how much the state has paid in insurance claims for police pursuits. For WIS Investigates, I'm Cynthia Beasley.
Welcome back. We've showed you how dangerous police pursuits can impact innocent people. Well, tonight in The Price of Pursuit, we're looking at the financial cost of pursuits as well as solutions.
The missing link is technology.
This is something that can mean that these two girls didn't die in vain.
Investigative reporter Cynthia Beasley shows us technology that was created right here in South Carolina that one family believes could have saved their children in a pursuit.
The federal government released a report urging law enforcement agencies to try to use technology to shorten pursuits or avoid them altogether. The report says not only could this protect innocent people, but it can also save taxpayers money in the long run. And I found South Carolina pays millions of dollars every year to people who are hurt or killed in pursuits.
Once a pursuit starts, it's often over within minutes. Within those minutes, lives can be changed forever, sometimes innocent lives. On New Year's Eve in 2022, 15-year-old Caroline Gill and 17-year-old Maggie Dunn were driving near Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At that same time, a police officer was speeding, trying to catch up to a pursuit to catch a man accused of breaking into a home and stealing a car. As the teenage girls drove through an intersection, the officer slammed into them, killing Caroline and Maggie.
It's been a nightmare that you haven't woken up from. Like, it seems unreal every day. They're two wonderful girls, and the fact that we will never see their smiling faces again on the squad is just devastating.
In the early 2000s, the International Association of Chiefs of Police analyzed pursuit data. They looked at about 7,700 pursuits over 6 years. Almost 700 times, someone was injured or killed. So for every pursuit, a 9% chance it would end in injury or death.
We knew that they were dangerous, but it's something that happened to somebody else.
But it happened in Pickens County.
September the 10th, 2008 was, we had an officer pursuing a car that I think it lasted around 3 minutes and ended up killing an innocent young man. You know, of all the events in my career that we had to deal with, that event troubled me more than any other event.
Tim Morgan was in law enforcement for 37 years. For 22 years, he was the chief deputy at the Pickens County Sheriff's Office.
Even though I wasn't involved in it, I felt a great sense of responsibility. It was our agency, our policy, and it was certainly terrible for the family.
Morgan says this stayed on his heart and his mind, so he turned that into action.
The missing link is technology.
He created a system that can alert the public when a high-speed pursuit is happening near them. It's called Digital Siren. Morgan says their team installs technology in law enforcement vehicles. When the officer turns on their lights and sirens and hits a certain speed, the technology triggers an alert to an app, giving drivers a 30 to 45-second warning that a pursuit is nearby.
It's really a fairly simple installation. It doesn't require any additional work for the officer. Cost-wise, it's like $264 a year.
Police pursuits have already cost the state of South Carolina millions of dollars. Over 5 years, we found records of the state paying about $13.5 million in insurance claims for police chases. But across the state, the cost of pursuits is likely much higher. The State Insurance Reserve Fund only covers law enforcement agencies in 20 of the state's 46 counties, and it covers less than half of the state's towns and cities. Those other towns, cities, and counties may have their own insurance, meaning that $17 million in payouts is likely a fraction of the true cost to taxpayers.
And let's do something before there's a tragedy.
A report released by the federal government urges agencies to explore technology that can help shorten pursuits or avoid them altogether. There's technology available that shoots a GPS tracker onto a car. Another company created a tool that disables the car by deploying a nylon net.
This is something that can mean that these two girls didn't die in vain.
Law enforcement agencies across the country have implemented digital siren, including in Louisiana. The father of one of the teenagers killed donated money to install the technology in 9 police units.
A 45-second heads up for our particular situation. I mean, you never know what the outcome can be.
I can't help but believe had an alert gone off in that vehicle 30 seconds prior, it would have made a difference in that outcome.
In South Carolina, Morgan says only a few departments in the upstate have implemented digital siren, so users could only get pursuit alerts in those areas. He's hoping more agencies in his home state will use the technology. Morgan says the technology also collects pursuit data that can tell agencies and departments how many people were close to the pursuit and received a notification. Tomorrow on WIS News at 6, some law enforcement leaders say the penalty needs to be harsher for people who run from police. We'll talk about legislation that has already been filed that's directed at law enforcement agencies, but also at the people who are running from law enforcement. For WIS Investigates, I'm Cynthia Beasley.
Some law enforcement leaders say the penalty needs to be harsher for people who run from police. This week, WIS Investigates is breaking down the price of pursuit. We looked at the true costs, speaking to innocent people hurt in high-speed chases, and found the state has paid millions of dollars in insurance claims to people hurt or killed. We're also looking at potential solutions to reduce high-speed chases. Investigative reporter Cynthia Beasley talked to several people who think there needs to be more legislation surrounding pursuits.
There's talk about legislation from both sides, directed at law enforcement agencies, but also directed at people who run from police. Right now, the charge for someone driving from police is a misdemeanor. That sentence is between 90 days and 3 years. If a suspect does this a second time, the charge is a felony with a maximum sentence of 5 years. Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott and Charleston Police Chief Cheeto Walker both say they would support legislation that increases those penalties.
You don't even get a slap on the wrist for failing to stop. That's it. And again, we're sitting here talking about the danger it puts people at, and then when you get charged with it, it's really not even prosecuted. So yes, that needs to be changed. There needs to be some accountability for people who fail to stop, more than what we've got now.
It's deterrent. You will hope that, and that's thinking rationally. Not everybody think rationally, or we wouldn't have crime. Mm-hmm. You know. But absolutely, we're always in support of more legislations to help us do our job.
Senator Rex Rice from Pickens has pre-filed legislation upping the initial charge to a felony. His bill also increases the sentence to a mandatory minimum of 3 years if someone is found guilty of leading a law enforcement officer on a high-speed pursuit that's recorded by a dash cam or body cam. The bill would also set the maximum sentence at 5 years and says no part of that sentence can be suspended. This is the 4th time he has filed this bill. The past 3 sessions, it hasn't made it out of committee. And coming from the other direction of this topic, Richland County Senator Daryl Jackson has pre-filed legislation that would call on SLED and law enforcement officials to come up with a statewide standard and policy for police pursuits. Senator Jackson did file that bill last session. It also did not make it out of committee. For WIS Investigates, I'm Cynthia Beasley.